Go, Jason. All right, awesome. We're live, and thank everybody we really appreciate everybody coming this evening. There's a lot of different things you can do, and this is really great to have this level of turnout. We really appreciate that. We're gonna this evening is a workshop for us to have in a public meeting about the Stop 30 Future Land Use and Transportation Plan. I'm Keith Free. I'm the planning director for the city of Hendersonville, and this is you may be familiar. This is the second in a focus area of the Stop 30 area. Previously, we've just wrapped up our Westlake redevelopment plan and future land use plan for West Main Street, and so this is the next item of area of our community that we wanted to focus on. And as we look at things with future land use plans, it's just thinking about the future. We do have documents that talk about what we want for the future for our community. The particular document that we're looking at revising tonight, or at least evaluating if it needs revision, is the 2009 Future Land Use Plan. And one of the things with the properties that we have out in Stop 30, there's a lot of development pressure. There's a lot of vacant land out there. There's going to be a lot of things that come up over the next several years where somebody wants to do this or do that. And one of the reasons that we want to really just focus on this particular area is we want to have it very clear at the end of this process what the vision for that area is. So if we have folks that want to do some things that are contrary to whatever the vision ends up being, then it can be, well, that's not something that was decided back in 2009, but we just talked about that like last year or 3 years ago, and so that's part of the idea of that. And one of the other things that I might mention before we get going is, in looking at this area, there's no particular development or project that anybody's looking at. So there's not something kind of in the wings where we have several developers or interest of developing the property. Although we know that there will be over the next several years, but we want to be prepared when that interest comes to have a clear definition of what we're looking at as far as the vision of our community. I'm going to turn it over to Timothy Witten, and first before I do that, we do have some of our planning commissioners here. If they could raise their hands, some of them are in and outside the room, and so the Planning Commission. Thank you guys for being here. The Planning Commission will be the body that makes the final decision on future land use plan for that area. And then also that'll be reported out to BOMA. And I think we might have a couple of BOMA members here. I think Eddie's here, and Jim. Yes, and Jane. Awesome. So we really appreciate them being here and their interest in this meeting. I'll introduce Timothy Witten. He is our Assistant Planning Director. Timothy's been with the city and served the city for a little over 20 years, as well as being a landscape architect. He's also a certified planner through the American Institute of Certified Planners, and he does a lot of things here at the Planning Department, and he is leading our effort on this particular future land use plan. And I'll turn it over to Timothy. Yes. Well, they can't hear that. But you can turn on that.
Is that good, Jason? All right.
So I had a question. This is being televised, and so it's televised live, and then it's recorded. So if there's anything you're like, hey, what did they say about that? All this will be on YouTube. So we'll have that recorded.
And that's why we need, in the Q&A, we need y'all to come to the podium so you can speak into a microphone. That way, the folks on YouTube, as well as the folks in the auditorium, everybody's got access to the same information and questions and answers to the questions. Thank y'all for coming out. Overview of what we're doing tonight. We're going to, Kevin Tilbury is going to run through the first draft of the Stop 30 plan. Following that, we'll have the question and answer session. Again, if you need to sign up sheets are here on the left. And if you haven't signed up, if during the presentation, if you have a question that comes to mind, feel free to sign up then, or even if you don't, we'll make opportunity for you. The Stop 30 plan, anytime you're thinking about changing direction, or the possibility of changing direction, you need to know where you are. So the 2009 Future Land Use and Transportation Plan, that was a citywide plan. For the Stop 30 corridor, that plan showed west of Drakes Creek all the way to New Shackle, showed what's called suburban living, which allows for single-family residential, allows for villas or duplexes, townhomes, and then for secondary uses allows multifamily and civic, institutional, and parks. And then basically east of Drakes Creek Road all the way to where Stop 30 crosses over 386, most of that is shown as Regional Activity Center, which allows for office. There is a little strip of suburban living on the south side of Stop 30, about maybe 200 feet deep for suburban living, so single-family residential. So that's the current land use plan. The zoning that's in place. Now, the zoning is what has the teeth. That's what actually restricts you or says what you can and can't do. The zoning west of Drakes Creek is all the way to New Shackle is SR1, allows for single-family residential with a maximum of 3 units per acre, and then roughly everything east of Drakes Creek is estate residential, which allows up to 1 unit per acre. So that's the current zoning. In June of 21, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen recognized the need to take a fresh look at that area, update the plan, and so they funded the Stop 30 plan. In April this year, we held a stakeholders meeting principally for the folks who own property in the subject area. Had a good meeting with those folks. We took all that information, assimilated it, and then that's how we arrived at the first draft. As far as where we go from here, after this meeting, there will be a workshop just with the Planning Commission. That's sleeves rolled up. Planning Commission gets in there, and they're the ultimate body. They're going to make decisions about this. So we'll have that workshop, and then following that, probably sometime in September, the plan will go to the Planning Commission for a public hearing and adoption. Once the Planning Commission adopts that, they will then certify it to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and that's the final action. So I'll turn it over to Kevin with Kimley Horn. Kevin, if you can introduce your team and just kind of launch us into the plan.
Sure. Kevin, before you do, we have seats up there, and we're full. I think we may have just about enough seats, so you're more than welcome to sit in the comfortable seats. If you'd like to do that, go ahead. And it's going to be a little bit.
Go ahead. Best seats in the house. Come on up. Great, thanks, Keith. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for coming out. We really appreciate it. So I'm going to run through the plan just briefly. My name is Kevin Tilbury. I'm with Kimley Horn. So we've been partnering with the city and you all on this plan. And I'd also like to introduce a couple of my partners who have joined me David Corley and Jacob McGee. Now, this is a land use and transportation plan, so I know there's also interest in Stop 30 Road and some of the other streets in the area. So they are roadway designers, and they can answer some very specific questions for you all on that as well. So our main goal tonight is to listen to you all and to answer your questions. So I'm going to give you a brief presentation just to bring everyone up to speed on where we are right now in the plan. And then I think we're going to turn it over to you all and hear your questions and concerns and hopefully respond to them. So I'm going to reiterate, nothing is set in stone. As Timothy said, this is a draft, and so we really want to get your feedback and opinions. So just to clarify, when we talk about this plan, this is something that is going to guide staff, BOMA, the Planning Commission, when they make future decisions. So when they weigh future rezonings, development proposals, infrastructure investments, this is the standard that they're going to compare it to decide whether or not it's a good decision. And the reason that we're developing a plan is it provides transparency and clarity to them, but also to you all as well, so you can know what's going to happen. What this plan does not do, this is not a development proposal, so nothing is going to change. We're not going to go out and turn dirt tomorrow. This is just simply a plan for the future. It does not automatically change zoning. So property owners would still have to go through a rezoning process if they did want to adhere to the plan. And also, I want to point out, it doesn't obligate property owners to do anything. If you want to keep your land the way it is, this plan doesn't force you to do anything other than what you've got on the ground today. So I wanted to make that clear from the start. So just a little bit of background on sort of what we already know about the area, sort of what are the givens that we're working with. So this is our study area, the area that you see there in pink, and it sort of straddles Stop 30 Road on either side. A previous version of the study area went a little bit further to the north, and we decided to take that part out of the study because it's not in the city, it's in the unincorporated county, and we wanted this plan to really more focus on what's in the city. So you can see that's the area that we're dealing with. And one of the reasons why it's so important is if you zoom out a little bit, so this is Stop 30 Road is right in the middle of the screen there, and you see Drake's Creek and New Shackle Island that both run north and south through the study area, and both of those roads not only connect to Stop 30 Road, but they also provide connections, as you all are aware, to Vietnam Vets and to Gallatin Road, Gallatin Pike down at the bottom. And so these are significant north-south roads. And so that is one of the reasons why you're seeing a lot of interest in this area, because of how significant they are to the regional transportation system. So we know that there are several improvements already in the works for this area. As you're probably aware, the intersection at Drake's Creek and Stop 30, which is, for those of you who drive through it daily, I'm sure you know it's sort of a problem. It's already under design to replace that intersection, and so to widen it out a little bit, and then to add additional lanes going on to the expressway. So that's a project that's already in the works. A couple of other projects that are in the works are a little bit further up into Durham Farms. There's a roundabout on Drake's Creek that's in the works. And then also a little bit longer term, right now if you go up on Drake's Creek, you eventually have to turn into New Shackle Island to continue going north. But eventually they're going to extend Drake's Creek all the way up to Long Hollow Pike. So that's something that's in the works as well. And then on Stop 30 Road itself, we understand that there are some safety concerns on the road currently. So my partners that I introduced earlier, they're actually working with the city right now on a project to widen and add shoulders to Stop 30 Road between Drake's Creek and New Shackle Island. So that's already a project that's in the works. And then longer term, we know that the Vietnam Veterans is going to be widened as well, long term. So those are sort of the givens. That's what we know. The other thing that is notable about this area, as Keith mentioned, it's one of the last areas in Hendersonville that has large tracts of undeveloped land. There are a few churches there, but otherwise it's largely undeveloped. And so you are going to see, and you're already seeing interest from future development, and you will continue to see that into the future. So this is what the area would look like if it were to build out according to existing zoning right now. So Timothy mentioned part of the land in orange is zoned estate residential at 1 unit per acre. The pink is zoned suburban residential at 3 units per acre. We ballparked what that would look like if you were to build out at those densities, and that's the maximum number of units you would get if you were to build out at those allowed densities. So you'd get about a little over 400 units, 400 homes total in this area in the future under existing zoning. So this is what it would look like. That's the current zoning. This is the future land use plan that Keith and Timothy referred to earlier. And so that part of the Stop 30 Road area is zoned for regional activity center, and then the other part is zoned for suburban living. So if a rezoning request were to come in, this is the standard right now that they would refer to, the Planning Commission in BOMA. Essentially what this plan would do would be to replace this plan. So as Timothy mentioned, we took a very first cut at a plan and we presented it to a group of stakeholders back in April. And this is the plan that was presented. I won't go into it in a lot of detail, but what I will point out is this is what we heard. So from the folks that were there, and I recognize a lot of you here in the audience who are there, so thank you for coming back. Hopefully we've responded to your comments, but we'll see. So some things that we heard, the concept that we initially presented, they're like, this is way too much retail and office and industrial. We want to see less of that stuff. We want to see more residential, but at lower densities. So we also heard about traffic concerns on Stop 30 Road and ways to reduce traffic on Stop 30 Road. We heard about the connections to the Creekwood neighborhoods. There were concerns about that. And then also the concerns were that the plan focused on Stop 30 Road east of Drake's Creek, but not on the other side of Drake's Creek Road. So we wanted to take a look at that as well. So those are some of the big takeaways that we got from that meeting. Okay, so now what we took that feedback and we've made another pass at it. But instead of one option, we've provided 2 options for your consideration. And so that's what I'm about to present to you right now. All right, so these are the 2 options. Option A is at the top. Option B is at the bottom. It's the same study area, just 2 different ways of looking at it. So let's kind of break it down and compare the 2. They have some similarities and then they have some differences. So the big difference is if you see the area in blue, so those are the big parcels on the west side, those are under option A, those would be primarily residential, but with some retail as well, primarily at the intersections. So that's option A, is that they would be primarily residential. Option B is a little bit more on the commercial side. So it would be a mix of office industrial flex with some retail. So that is the big difference between option A and option B, are in those parcels and what the future land use plan would be. A little bit further over, the parcel, the old horse farm north of, on the other side of Stop 30, under both options, that would stay estate residential, which is very consistent with existing zoning. And then if we move to the intersection there at Drake's Creek and Stop 30, under both plans, that area calls for retail. But option B would have a little bit more retail than option A. So those are the big differences between option A and option B. And so those are the 2 that we've asked you to look at on the survey online. So the other difference between the 2 is that under option B, because it would develop as commercial and industrial, that would give us the ability to build a new road parallel to Stop 30 Road. And that's what you see in the image highlighted in the bottom. So that would be the new road that would be built under option B. It would not be built under option A, just under option B.
Where's it going to?
The road would connect from Stop 30 Road to New Shackle Island Road.
But where on Stop 30?
It would connect just on the other side of Drake's Creek Road. So The next few slides go into more detail on the land use concepts. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip past these. If you do have specific questions on these, we can come back to them in the Q&A. But I know you guys, obviously, you have questions, so I want to get to those. So I'm going to skip ahead and talk a little bit about the development impacts of each of those options in the interest of transparency. So the first thing I'm going to do is compare it to existing zoning. So if you were to build today according to the existing zoning, depending on where you are, you could either build at 1 unit per acre or 3 units per acre. And then I'd like to point out that the residential concept under this plan wouldn't change that. It stays at 3 units per acre. So the residential plan for this area doesn't increase the density. It's pretty much consistent with what the current zoning already is. So this is the slide I showed you earlier. If we develop this area according to the existing zoning, it could result in as many as 415 dwelling units. And that's what you see here on the map. Now, if we look at option B, this is the development that would result. But we don't know for sure, but this is an estimate of what it might look like under that option. So you can see there would be some residential, but there would also be some retail there, because that's what this plan would call for. Under option B, which is primarily commercial and industrial, you'd see more commercial and industrial development and less residential. Mm-hmm.
Call out on A and B what the number of dwelling units potentially would be.
Yep. Well, that's what. Yep. Yep. There you go. Yeah. You spoke it into existence. So this is a comparison. If we were to look at the two options compared to existing zoning, these are the total number of dwelling units maximum that could be built under both options compared to zoning. So existing zoning is about 420 units. If we were built to option A, that would yield about 280 units. Option B would yield about 20 units. And the reason why option B has so fewer units is because the plan calls for more non-residential. So I'll show you that in just a minute. So you can see the difference between the three.
I have a quick question on that note right there. I'm sorry for not waiting the question to answer, but I feel like this is going to come up multiple times. Are you using the 1 house per acre for current zoning, or the maximum of 2 houses for 1 for each half acre?
So
Or are you using 3?
it's 3. So where
The maximum, which is a variance that they have to ask for of the zoning, which is 1 house per acre, correct?
No. Part of the study area is suburban residential, which is 3 units per acre, and part of it is estate residential, which is 1 unit per acre.
But you are using those 3 and the 1.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So this is a comparison of the dwelling units, and then this is a comparison of the commercial, office, and retail impacts. So you can see existing zoning right now is all residential. If you build according to existing zoning, there is no commercial, office, or industrial. Option A has a little bit of retail, about 200,000 square feet of retail. So option A has a mix of retail and residential. Option B is primarily commercial, office, industrial, as you can see there. So you have significantly more. You have about 500,000 each of retail, office, and industrial. So I know one of the questions that we got was on traffic. What is this going to do to traffic? So we took a look at traffic, and these are existing traffic volumes right now on Stop 30 Road. So right now, Stop 30 Road gets about 7,000 cars per day. Drake's Creek gets about, depending on which side of Stop 30 Road you're on, it either gets about 9,000 or closer to the expressway, it goes up to about 15,000 cars per day. And those are all the cars getting on the expressway. And then New Shackle Island Road has about 18,000 cars. It carries about 18,000 cars per day. And then the numbers in the lower right there are just for comparison. so you can see what other roads in Hendersonville, the traffic volumes, just to get a basis of comparison. So both roads, they already carry, I don't think I have to tell you this, they already carry a pretty good amount of traffic. All right, so what will happen if we develop according to the plan? So if we develop according to existing zoning, we've estimated the number of trips that those units would generate, those 420 dwelling units. And we estimate that they would generate an additional 2,000 trips per day that would go on Stop 30 Road and eventually to either Drakes Creek or New Shackle Island Road. So that's how many trips you would be adding on to Stop 30 under existing zoning. So does anyone want to take a stab at how many trips would, under option A, how many think those would add?
10,000.
You nailed it. You must have seen the presentation online. So 10,000, so about 10,000 trips per day. So an additional 8,000 trips per day if you build according to option A.
I have a question. How come you're not showing how much traffic is going to be down Creekwood when you do that connector route? That's not in your study at all. You're going to destroy our segment.
Well, that's definitely a concern, and we'll get to that. So additional 17,000 trips per day under option B. So a good bit more trips.
How much is coming down Creekwood?
That's definitely something you consider.
Have you studied Creekwood?
We'll talk about that in a minute. So these are the transportation recommendations. So we want to, make sure that we provide a transportation system that can accommodate the additional amount of traffic. So under option A, there would not be a new road. The traffic would stay on Stop 30 Road, but we want to improve it because we know that we're adding a significant amount of additional trips onto the road. So this is what it would look like. This is what it looks like today. It's about 10-foot lanes, no shoulders. It's definitely not great to drive on right now, as you guys know. And so under option A, this is one proposal for what it could look like. So this would be the recommendation for Stop 30 Road under option A. So you would have wider lanes, you would have a center turn lane with medians, you'd have a sidewalk, you'd have a multi-use path, you'd have all that stuff. So this is option B. So under option B, you would build a new road. And so Stop 30 Road would then become a local road. And the traffic would divert to that new road. And this is what that new road would look like under option B. So no ma'am. And so this is what it would look like. This is, and so this is what that section of Stop 30 would look like. So we'd build a trail along that section of Stop 30 Road, widen it a little bit, and add shoulders to that section of Stop 30 Road. Now, the other section going to Drakes Creek would look like this. So then it would look a lot like that new road too, because that would take you all the way to Drakes Creek. So almost there.
Where would the road come out on New Shackle? Is it going to be by the BPs? Will it be by the...
It would be south. So the BP is, so existing Stop 30 right now goes right into New Shackle, which is about where the BP is. The new road would swing a little bit further to the south.
It comes out by the end of the triangle. Right north of it, that.
Yep.
So it's going to come between...
So
Let me, hold on just a second, Kevin. Yeah, these are great questions. We've got a lot of folks that are watching online and that will be watching this later, and they can't hear any of the really good questions that you're asking. And if we can let Kevin just go ahead and finish up
I'm
here.
almost done, I swear.
And then
we'll get to your questions.
Each of these questions that you have, we're going to field those, and then I think we'll be able to drill down and answer each one of those questions. It just gets kind of chaotic in a group this large for folks just to be kind of doing that. Let's just do that.
We're almost there.
We're almost
guys.
there.
So at the last meeting, we heard that we need to look at the other side of Stop 30 Road. So we did that. So this is what it would look like. So wider lanes, a shoulder, and then building up that multi-use path so it could extend the full length of Stop 30 Road. So we've also been asked to look at New Shackle Island Road as well. This is what it looks like today. And this is what the proposal would look like. So we'd add an additional travel lane on either side, a nice median with a center turn lane, and sidewalks on either side. And then this is what the what the intersections would look like at each one. All right, so I know there are concerns about Creekwood, and I assume a lot of you are here from Creekwood, so we're definitely here to hear your concerns as well. So one of the things that that we would look at is if we do provide that connectivity, is things like traffic calming. So when we talk about traffic calming, it would these are some of the things that we're talking about to discourage cut-through traffic and to prevent speeding on the roads. And so we'll talk more about that. We're here to hear your concerns, to answer your questions, so we can definitely talk about that. All right, so I alluded to an online survey earlier, and it's been up for, I think, a couple of weeks now. So we checked it late last week, and we have about 50 responses to date. And right now, it's about 3-to-1 in favor of option A. So if you had to pick one between option A and option B, which one would best describe what you would want to see? And about 3-to-1, you picked option A.
Was there an option to not do anything?
Well, that's existing zoning. So if you don't do anything, it's existing zoning. So that's it. So we're done, guys. Here's where we're going from here. We're going to listen to your feedback. We've already heard some of your feedback. We'll continue to listen to it. We'll use that to shape recommendations. We'll take it to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission will adopt it and then certify it to BOMA. So that's what would make it a formal part of the plan. But before we do that, we want to listen to your questions. So did you want me to handle the questions, or Timothy, did you want to handle the questions?
Timothy will do it, and then Caitlin, if you want to come up here, she's got the folks that are on the list. But my guess is there's a lot of folks that didn't sign up, but you've got a question, and that's okay. But what we'll do is the folks that have signed up, we'll give them the opportunity to speak first, because anybody that's going to speak, we really need you to get. We'll call your name out, but we need you to get up here by the podium so everybody can hear you. That's online and that'll watch it later, and so everybody in the room can hear as well.
So we're going to we're going to address the questions from people that signed up first. But if you didn't sign up, don't worry. We'll get to your questions and concerns after that.
Okay.
I've got Brian Moore. I may have said the last name wrong.
And if you can, if you get up to speak, just say your name and state your address, and that'll be awesome. Thank you.
My name is Brian Moore. I'm at 2038 Stop 30 Road. One of the biggest questions I have is our mailboxes are on the opposite side of the street, and the current traffic that's coming through is quite dangerous. As far as speeding, nobody cares about you being in the road, all that kind of stuff. What's the plan for the mailboxes and the traffic flow as far as the speeding and everything, so forth?
So are you on you're on the section between Drakes Creek and New Shackle Island? Is that right? Okay.
I'm the second house from the corner of Cross Creek.
Okay. So aside from this plan, there's already a project going on right now to redesign that section of Stop 30 Road, and I'm going to defer to my. Oh, there you are. I'm going to defer to my partners who are actually doing that work, and they can answer your question.
So I can't speak in regards to and I'll say my name, David Corley with Kimlinghorn on the design team. I'll also give the caveat that we're exploring design options right now. This is not a funded project to construct improvements on Stop 30, but we're exploring design alternatives to either make short-term improvements that would benefit in the now before any of this comes along, and also coordinating with the planning department. Public Works and planning department are coordinating to make sure if there are any short-term improvements made that they'll be in line with the long-term vision. But the main things that we're looking at in the short-term plan are it's safety improvements. There's a lot of sight distance concerns. We know there are speeding concerns. We know there are clear zone issues, and we are trying to solve a lot of those problems by increasing the shoulder width, but then also reducing the actual lane width that is striped to help mitigate speeding. And we're looking at some of the traffic control or some of the traffic calming measures. Again, early stages of design, but we know that speeding is one of the major concerns that we're looking to solve along with safety.
Yeah.
But I can't speak to the mailbox issue. That's a
But the
fair
shoulder,
question.
the shoulder would add some distance between the travel lane and your mailbox.
Correct.
Okay, because
Yep.
y'all have stated in one of the comments before that I think you saying that the lane width is 10 feet. Is that correct?
It's more like 8 feet.
It's 8 to 10.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say.
yeah.
I drive a dually truck up and down that road, and
Yep.
it's line to line.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. I think it's more or 9 feet is what it typically is. About 18 feet of pavement. The short-term solution we're looking at right now is 26 feet of pavement. That'd be 2 10-foot lanes with 3-foot shoulders. And that'd be a major improvement. But we also want to make sure that doesn't just make it more comfortable to speed, recognizing that as well.
Exactly.
So because it's a long straightaway, so we're thinking about all those options in very early stages of that project. But those concerns are heard for sure.
Just out of curiosity, is there a date set to that project?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Who's next?
Robert Little.
That was a great question about the mailbox. That was a very nice
I'm Robert Little, 314 Raindrop. The Stop 30 started in March of 22. I asked last year the status of Stop 30 several times at the planning. I was told nothing was been happening. Is the Planning Commission going to be fair on all this? Found out tonight there was a meeting a couple months ago. Only 20 people showed up. Look at tonight because it's actually posted. There's a difference. How come the planning department spent no time caring about our subdivision? Even on your planogram, you want to do a road through our subdivision. You didn't even think about us. The planning department did not ask Kimberly or Horn to study of Stop 30 to look at the impact of our subdivision. Again, this shows the planning did not care about our department. According to your traffic, there's going to be over 17,000 people coming through this area. How much is going to come down Creekwood? You said you'd answer that question. We haven't heard anything yet. Also, what part of New Shackle going to be fixed first, or is it going to be the last thing on the item? Do we have a date yet?
So a couple questions there.
Yep.
And just to clarify, you're in the Creekwood neighborhood in the subdivision through there, and that's your concern. So I think what I'm hearing is you're not seeing enough detail in the plan on
There's no
traffic
detail.
impacts on
There's
Creekwood.
nothing. There's not
Okay.
a little bit. There's nothing.
Okay. All right. No, we hear you.
So you
So-
want to cram all this traffic down our Creekwood with nothing thinking about.
So we can take a look at that. I mean, that's why we're here to hear your concerns. So we can take a look at that. And then the other question was the date of New Shackle Island Road. This is just a proposal, so there's no date that's been set in stone yet for the improvements to New Shackle Island.
So you can do the connector road first before the state does Stop 30.
Oh,
so you can do the
improvements
connector
to
road.
Stop 30?
You
No,
can do
those
the
are-
connector road first before New Shackle gets widened. Is that correct then?
We don't have, no dates have been set in stone yet, but so what's your concern with respect to that?
New Shackle will not be widened first to handle the traffic, and everything's going to come down Creekwood because you're going to do that connector without state approval.
See, when you talk about the connector, you're talking about the one that would extend Creekwood up to Stop 30 Road.
Right.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you would like to see improvements to New Shackle Island before any type of connector road?
Right. I mean,
Okay.
you're going to destroy our subdivision anyway.
No, I hear you. Okay.
I mean, everyone says we hear, but we're not getting dates or, where's it all coming from?
Well, because this is not a formal plan
I
yet. These are
understand
just
that.
ideas that we're thinking about. So nothing is set in stone yet, and that's why we're here tonight to listen
And
to
to,
your
and to, and to
concerns.
the end about caring about Creekwood, that is part of this process. That's why we're having this meeting, is so that we can hear your concerns, specifically on the connections. The first draft proposed, well, of course, Creekwood's got existing stub outs. So that was planned when Creekwood was first built, there was a plan that those roads would continue on through to eventually, future connections. But through that stakeholder meeting, there were concerns expressed about the number of connections. You expressed those to me. So this draft did respond to that. We're down to one connection through the main road instead of, I think it was 5 or 6. And then, again, in response to the neighborhood's concerns, we did address, added a slide in here about traffic calming. But certainly we understand your concern, and I think your point about looking closer at the traffic impacts to Creekwood Lane is well taken.
Well, everyone talks about calming, the neighborhood calming program, which is a joke because it doesn't take into account of kids playing in the street, riding their bikes, people walking. If you look at that report, there's nothing in it. Yeah, to slow traffic down, but why? I mean, look at Grapevine behind Sam's. Everyone does that cut through behind there, and the city hasn't done anything to save that subdivision. So you're saying you're going to help us, you haven't even helped them, and that's been for a couple of years. You know where I'm talking about?
At Grapevine, yes, sir.
Yeah. So why hasn't they been, and that's a narrow road.
Yeah.
That's why we don't trust you.
We're definitely concerned about that. There are other things we have to be concerned about, such as connectivity. Every neighborhood street, we have to be concerned about those things. But if we can't close off all neighborhood streets to traffic. So,
I mean, we've been that way for 50 years, so, the reason you're doing this is because you got to solve the problem on Stop 30. So instead of solving Stop 30 first, you're going to shove everything down Creekwood, and that's what we're afraid of.
well, I think that's one of the reasons why we want to look at the improvements to Stop 30 that can be done either through option A or option B to improve that, to improve the capacity of those streets to bear that.
Still need option C, called leave it alone.
And that's why we're here to listen to you. We could have come up with multiple options, probably several dozen. But.
Yeah, this is, let me just, I'll speak to that. This is just something where, we need a starting point to talk with and to start from. And that's what we did in our Westlake. And some of you may not have followed the Westlake. It's very similar to this process that we did. But that started, and we had some ideas about what we threw out on the table, and the public participated, and that changed through that process. And we're just now at the first of that process. But and I understand the option C is just leave it alone. Well, leave it alone. What that does is for as we're talking about your neighborhood, it has, I think, 5 potential stub outs, and so leaving it alone means as development occurs on any of those adjacent properties, we're going to be wanting those stub outs to happen, and then eventually some of those stub outs, maybe multiple ones, will get up to Stop 30, and so what nobody can hear on the thing there, and so what we're looking at here is, as far as our concern with Creekwood, and then understanding that that's a concern because we live here, we understand that, and that's a concern for that neighborhood. And so what we're looking at, as Timothy was explaining, is what we're looking at, well, okay, we'd like to have full connectivity because I think we all understand that not having any backway connectivity or connectivity through neighborhood streets, it pushes everything to the major intersections. And then when you're pushing everything to the major intersections, we have all the problems, all the problems that we have. But as Timothy was, saying, we're looking at is instead of having 5 potential connections that could infuse into that neighborhood, we're looking to just limit the proposal to just the one on Creekside, so that there's just one point of where it's coming in, And then part of what we're looking at with this plan is to make a part of this plan that none of those other areas would be fully connected. You might get cul-de-sacs that come off of them, but not necessarily connectivity, up to stop 30. So that's kind of what we're looking at with that. But everything that you're sharing, and even the questions that you're asking, we'll be asking tonight that we can't answer, we're listening to these things, and our planning commissioners, a majority of our planning commissioners are here this evening as well, and they're listening to this, and all of this information will help the staff work with the consultant that will help the planning commission as we move forward to look at evolving this plan down to something, not something that just shuts everything down and leave everything exactly like it is with nothing happening. I think we all understand that even as it's zoned right now and just leaving it alone, it's going to develop. I mean, it isn't just going to sit there forever. There will be implications as it develops. And we're just trying to look, I think, as a community, is okay, what is it the community wants, and then what can we do to bring in planning, perspective of how we're managing the development as it occurs. And so that's what we're looking at. But these are all very good questions, and we're listening to all of these, and we're going to infuse those as we develop forward. So, thank you, Mr. Lowe.
And I would say, as far as leaving things alone, keep in mind the current land use plan, not the zoning, but the current land use plan for suburban living does allow multifamily as a secondary use up to 8 to 10 units per acre. That's not the zoning. I doubt it would ever become that, but that goes away with this plan. There is no multifamily possibility with a new plan. Whereas if you leave things the same, that land use plan is there for the planning commission as guidance as to what that zoning should be.
That's a zoning variance you're talking about, right?
No, I'm just talking about the current land use.
10 per acre.
I'm just talking about the current land use plan.
Where do you get the 8 to 10?
It's what's outlined in the character areas.
What you could do, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But that's not zoning.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. You might want to wait and ask that question because the people in the audience can't hear, and then the people that are watching, and it's going to be recorded, they're not going to be able to hear that. And I want everybody would hear that. Go ahead, Mr. Little. I'm sorry.
Okay. When Davidson County was going to build a school there, they got flooded out. Stop 30 Development bought that for $4 million. Are they still in a flood plan?
Yeah, nothing as far as the floodplain and all that stays the same. There's
Well,
very
it did
limited-
not, because the mayor got a variance for Glenbrook North, where Taco Bell is. That's in a floodplain also. So is he
Yeah.
going to do the same thing to us at Stop 30? The mayor just said, okay, it's not going to flood again.
Yeah, I'm not sure what mayor
That's our mayor,
had done that.
Our
but,
current mayor did that.
Uh,
Because I'll show you the plat of the flood FEMA.
But the FEMA maps and the flood maps and the flood areas are what they are. There
But
are
that's
some
why
things,
Davidson County
yeah,
had to
there's some
leave.
things that could be done in flood areas, but not in floodways. And the majority of all of that along Drake's Creek, I don't think we have a map of that, but it's all in that actual floodway.
So that is what, you see the green, the GP under both plans. So that's the part that's in the floodplain, and it's green space. So we're not proposing development in that location.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing is, the Volunteer Bank want to do a addition from their bank to our subdivision, create a new road. Also, the city forced the vet just north of Volunteer Bank to give them a 30-foot easement, and he had to pay $26,000 for that easement approval before he got a permit. Because that's another street that you guys want to go all the way from Creekwood to Stop 30 with a new design. Is that totally dead now?
Well, the issue that you're talking about was withdrawn from the bank, so there is no connection through there. As far as the issue with the vet and any other commercial development that we have is, like when you're driving through any of our commercial areas, especially our newer areas, there's connectivity where you can go from one business to the other, and that's cross-access across properties. And we try to get that every time we can when there's a new commercial development so that we can keep traffic off of the streets. But it's not necessarily directed to go to Creekwood, but to connect all those properties, so you don't have to get back out on New Shackle.
But they've tried twice now to do that. The bank's tried twice to hook up to our street, and we fought it both times. But now you got the bank involved too, and that's right
Yeah,
next
and
to.
there's nothing in this plan that's saying
I know.
that should be done.
I'm just bringing up
Yeah.
another problem for Creekwood.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see, I think that's it. Let's see. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Lewison?
David Levison, 321 Raindrop, Creekwood. That slide's fine. I was going to have you switch to 12, but I know that area is going to get developed. Or not 12, I'm sorry. It may have been 14.
We'll find it.
That's good. And, I mean, I don't know that you could stop that connection for Creekwood, but from my perspective on Creekwood Lane, it's already a fast street because it's got a really long straightaway. So that slide you already added had some calming features or traffic, what do they call that? Traffic road diet, maybe. Narrowing it up, maybe some curb bump outs. But connecting Creekwood into that greenway with some sidewalks also, all the way down Creekwood, going to Glenbrook would kind of tie those two areas together. And it would make the area more walkable, bikeable. But we really would need some traffic calming measures on Creekwood for that to happen. I know my kids go across Creekwood and they play at that God Y Church playground. So I would be concerned about them going across the street if we get, 10,000 more cars going down that road at a fast rate of speed. So maybe even crosswalks added with some more visibility. The traffic, I think even some bump outs where you make people have to pay attention and slow down because it gets too narrow to speed. And then, so I don't know a lot about development. Are those the kinds of things the Planning Commission can say, look, you're going to develop this retail area, but in order to do that, you got to have this, I don't know what you would call it, not necessarily a bond, or you have to put up so much money to do these infrastructure improvements in Creekwood.
Yes. And I like your point about the sidewalks on Creekwood as a way to connect that subdivision to the Greenway, which then connects to Drake's Creek Park. Yeah. So as far as these two plans, the more development potential there is, the more leverage the Planning Commission has to require amenities such as sidewalks and greenway connections. With existing zoning, as it is, anybody can develop that by right without having to do that.
Right.
If there's an option to get a little bit more development potential out of each of those large parcel lots, then the Planning Commission can make those, can say you get more uses, you get more square footage, you get X, Y, and Z, but in return, you're on the hook for providing these infrastructure requirements. So with option B, that potential is way up there.
Right, so you'd be more likely to be able to require something like that with more
Yes.
retail, commercial.
Right. And I think with option A, there may be some of that. It starts to kind of diminish somewhat, but we do show a greenway on the stop 30 cross section for option A. So that is our hope that that's something we could do.
Could you speak really quick on what light industrial would entail? What is that exactly?
So we see that as kind of a flexible, office / industrial, where somebody could have office in the front, industrial in the back. We see it as being more like geared towards, I don't know if boutique industrial is a term, but certainly high-tech industrial, not really intense industrial, but I think the images that are there on the screen kind of point to just the character that we would be looking for.
So it wouldn't be
flex
like
office.
steel fabrication shops or chemical mixing
No,
companies or?
not any kind of heavy impact.
No heavy industrial manufacturing, more, as Timothy said, makers, what they call a maker space, so smaller spaces that have individual business owners doing things like furniture, high tech, things like that is sort of would be the vision for that area.
It'd probably be more akin to light industrial or heavy commercial. It's might be not heavy industrial, those type of noxious uses.
Okay, I'm really asking that for people on Raindrop. Part of that does back up closer to that neighborhood there. And, some of the noise that can come from a industrial, commercial type setup, especially I think, they're required to have like dumpsters in the back, right? Well, their backs up to somebody's house, and those dumpsters don't get emptied during business hours. I know the bank sometimes comes at 3, 4 in the morning, and it's pretty loud. So that would be a consideration I think we need to think about for those residents on Raindrop. I think you guys addressed me. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I might mention, just to clarify too, is we're talking about that potential connection into Creekwood up to Stop 30, right there at Cross. Can't see the name of the road there, but it lines up
Cross
there
Creek.
of Lawson Point. So when we're talking about that road, that's not a road that the city is looking to construct. That would be something, and there are no plans, and I don't know that there would be any plans to develop that particular property. But at such time someone developed it, probably, I guess, residentially, as it's zoned right now, at that time, that's when we would be looking at getting that connectivity. So it would just be if and when it developed in the future. But I don't foresee this connection that we're talking about. Creekwood is not something that we're looking at from a city standpoint, to just constructing at the same level as what we're talking about Stop 30. It's just thinking about, as that property may develop in the future, making sure that we have some connectivity down through there. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
CJ Merle.
You can build the easel.
Jason, are you able to zoom in on that? Okay, yeah, we can get it on there. Okay.
Good evening, CJ Merle with 615 Design Group. I'm here tonight representing the Bible Baptist Church property located at the southeast corner of New Shackle Island Road and Stop 30 Road. Would like to say that from the start, we are not against the corridor plan. I think that from a planning perspective and just an overall infrastructure and city perspective, I think it's something that is very much needed. What we would like to do though is, a lot of people may know this, they drive past this property a lot. This property has been owned by the church since 2003, so 20 years. They purchased the property with the intent to develop it into either a school or a church. And one of the things that we noticed early on with this plan is that religious uses and school uses were not part of the overall master plan. So we wanted to make sure that the school and the church's plan was not lost with the proposed Stop 30 corridor plan. So one of the main things that we would like to see is that I think overall from a plan perspective, we are leaning, I will say we're leaning more towards option A, but in either one of the options, we would like to see the uses be allowed for religious uses and civic school uses. One of the reasons why we are geared more towards option A is that we feel with the amount of road frontage we have on New Shackle and Stop 30 Road, the addition of yet a third road coming through the parcel would cripple the parcel from a development perspective, especially if the church, obviously the intent is to hold on to the property and develop it, they would be required to develop the full extent of the proposed roadway that goes to the south. Any improvements that are along New Shackle Island Road and Stop 30 Road, at least their side of the road. So we're not very much a fan of option B, especially when we have existing infrastructure that needs to be updated and improved. I think that more use of Stop 30 Road being improved would be a better benefit to this area than another roadway tying into New Shackle Island Road. If I did have a question, it would be along the lines of, would TDOT allow the connection of another roadway in between an already a traffic light at Clinbrook Way and a traffic light at Stop 30? Would they even allow a traffic light in between there?
Yep. So where that potential connection would be exactly halfway between those two existing signals, and you'd have 1,000 feet between each one, which is sufficient.
Okay.
And I'll also add that this new connection, as you said, is not a planned city road.
Yeah.
It's if it was to develop at a high density, it may be smart to have an additional connection to support the additional trips.
Okay.
So it's contingent on what the development, drives.
Okay. Thanks for answering that question. Like I said, the other uses that are not currently allowed in option A or option B is one of the uses that is currently utilized by the church and the school is they provide housing for staff and or / missionaries that are traveling across the globe. On this plan, you see conceptual drawings of single-family residential homes, and so we would also ask that single-family is still an option with either one of option A or option B. I know that the zoning allows for it currently, but just from a future land use plan perspective, if we were to go back and rezone the property and show the use, we would have to add an agenda item to change the land use and revise this plan. So the main thing is those three uses we would like to see added. We are showing retail use along New Shackle Island Road because obviously we see that as a commercial corridor, at least from 386 up to Stop 30 Road. So we are adding that in, which is in line with the plan and would fall under the mixed residential or light retail portion of option A. I think for the most part, that's it. I think we just wanted to make sure, like I said, that the plan of the developing the property as a church and a school was not lost with the proposal of the Stop 30 corridor plan. So.
Great.
If we do have to give up any property for option D, we just want to make sure we give up as much as the people around us, not
Yeah.
give up more.
So what he's saying is that if we have to give up any property for option B, we want to make sure that it's comparable to the other properties adjacent to us. The other thing that I will mention, I know the intersection of Stop 30 Road and New Shekel Island Road is potentially a major intersection and definitely needs to be improved. We have the opportunity with our parcel to dedicate quite a bit more right-of-way along the north side of our property because we're encumbered by major power lines, and the north side of our property for the first 100 feet can't be developed anyways. So which allows that intersection to be improved drastically with increased right-of-way dedication on that side, which I would argue is a much better play than adding another road. Now, obviously, having a road cross the creek and come into this property could provide connectivity. I think connectivity is definitely a positive, especially in commercial development and just overall from an emergency and medical responsiveness standpoint. But I wanted to make sure that I brought up the fact that Stop 30 Road, we could dedicate quite a bit of right-of-way to help with that widening.
That's great.
So I think that's...
So if I heard correctly, I think your preference would be option A. It's
Yes,
more
sir.
consistent with your plan. And I will point out that we did hear previously that, one of the concerns is that we wanted to be able to keep religious uses.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll notice under both options, the mixed residential with light retail or mixed office, both of those options do include religious
Okay.
use. So,
Okay.
and then to your point about the north side of the property, this is what Stop 30 Road would look like under option A. You'll notice right now there's about 50 feet of right-of-way. In order to build what you're seeing there, we need additional right-of-way. So that is sort of consistent, I think, with what you're saying on
Yes,
the north
sir.
side of the property. So
Yes, sir. And the only other thing that I'll add at this point is obviously from this point, this plan is very conceptual. We have not submitted this plan to the city of Hendersonville. We just wanted to make sure that we were prepared for this meeting tonight
Right.
to share with you guys.
our concept is consistent with your concept. Yeah,
Yes.
great.
Thank y'all.
I mean, it would be under option A. It would under B. We haven't looked at that level of detail, but let's see. So it would. So it would. So I'm sorry. The question was how much property would be required of that parcel under option B. So this is what the road would look like. So it requires about. And this is just a concept. This is not a design, but this concept is 60 feet of right-of-way. And so this is the church parcel here, so it would be 60 feet here and then 60 feet through there as well, through all the parcels that would pass through. But then again, that would be, only if the intensity of development could support, building a new road. The concept that you're showing now, it probably wouldn't. So there wouldn't, under that concept, there probably wouldn't be a new road.
Yeah,
So,
and on that, this is worth taking a second to talk about. The Bible Baptist property on that corner, it really holds the key to the improvement of New Shackle and that intersection. It's really going to be, really key. And I understand as the gentleman had shared that option B, especially because to get that distance that someone had talked about between the stoplights or the intersections, you got to go all the way to the bottom of the property, which, if it was in the middle of the property, then you've got the use of both sides, but you're building this potentially, substantial road, and you're just getting utilization off of one side. So I definitely understand what he was sharing on that. But what'll happen, like with any of the properties as they would develop, and then particularly as we're focused right here on the Bible Baptist property, if it was a significant development, then, what we would do is it'd go through the planning process, go to the planning commission, and then the city staff and the planning commission, we'd be looking at okay, well, it's going to generate all this new traffic and there's going to be all this activity. Now's the time that, you know, you need to improve this part of the road or this part of the intersection, or you need a turn lane. So at that time, that's when those things happen, where the private development would then construct whatever it is, you know, that was directly associated with the development itself. So can't go way down the street and have a development do something that needs to be done, but the development isn't really making a difference one way or the other. But the things that are touching the property, those are fair game, you know, to look at. And this particular parcel that we were talking about, it's got a lot of frontage on New Shackle, and it's got a whole lot of frontage on Stop 30 as well. So, okay.
Great. But there are 3 more names on the list, and then we'll entertain questions from other folks in the audience. Who's next?
Patrick Meacham.
I'm Pat Meacham, 1612 Stop 30 Road. That's on the eastern part of Stop 30 Road. 24 years ago, we bought that property, and certainly have seen a lot of changes occur in that period of time. One question, would any of these proposals require a rezoning?
I'll let you guys answer that. You're probably better suited than I am.
Yeah, so, no, the plan does not require rezoning. We don't have an intent to follow this plan up with the rezoning. What this plan will do, if it's adopted, in whatever form it's adopted, it will serve as guidance to the Planning Commission if somebody comes to them and wants to rezone their own property. So that's the function that it will serve, but it will not rezone anything in and of itself.
Understood. One other thing, you don't happen to have any data about the number of traffic trips on Stop 30 Road from like 10 years ago, do you?
We could research that, certainly.
You know, people talking about the option nil that they'd like to have where we don't do anything. Well, actually, option nil is not nearly as good as the option before that. 10 years ago, and I see we're trying to make developments that are solving some of the problems that other developments have created traffic-wise. When we first moved there, driving on Stop 30, the eastern part of Stop 30 Road was a pleasure. And driving on the western part was not a pleasure, but certainly not relaxing, but it's narrow. Streets are even more narrow than any other part. And there's occasionally a big truck or something that'll come along. But in the last 5 years, that has become a white knuckle drive, that portion of Stop 30 Road. That is between Drake's Creek and New Shackle Island. When we first moved here, we were attracted to this area because it was semi-agrarian. Right across the street from our home, there was a active farm with cows grazing, and just down Jones Lane a ways, there were some wide open fields with corn growing. That it's all now high-density housing, and that has really made a big traffic problem, even to our section of Stop 30 Road. So I dare say the traffic trips on our section alone has probably gone up at least tenfold in the last year. Very noticeable. That's all I have.
To answer your question, the TDOT ADT maps, which is the daily traffic, looking back at 2013 for where the bridge is over Drake's Creek,
Yeah.
was under 3,000 in 2013 compared to 7,000 last year.
So it's doubled, more than doubled
More than
in
doubled,
the last
yeah.
10 years.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, David. Who's next?
Lynn Ford.
Well, here I go again, having an out-of-body experience while trying to stand up here and talk to you folks. You would think after being up here and coming and talking over the last 30-something years that I would have gotten the hang of it. But I live at 103 Peachtree Lane in Creekwood. Unfortunately, I disagree with my neighbor that spoke earlier. We don't want any traffic calming. We don't want any roundabouts. We don't want any connections whatsoever. I know you said, well, kind of the the threat of, well, you better take one because then you can get 5 if you don't take this. Kind of a scare tactic. Well, we've heard that before. We were just up here not long ago, like the gentleman talked about, the connector road from Creekwood across the vet and the bank property and everything like that. Well, if we didn't want that little bit coming into our neighborhood, we don't want all the rest of that coming into our neighborhood all the way through. Because it's not only just traffic, but it's our neighborhood, closed neighborhood connectivity. Like you said, we have people walking and riding bikes, the kids are out and that kind of thing. But another thing is, I live just a couple of doors down from New Shackle Island. Now, I don't know every car that comes in and out of my neighborhood, but I have a general idea of, when you see it kind of come for over 30-something years, about who lives in our neighborhood. But if it cuts through, and you add all the extra houses and all that you're trying to, make the road lot wider on Stop 30, then there's always going to be coming through there. I don't care how much you put traffic calming. And I know if I live in the back part of the neighborhood, I don't want to have to hit all those bumps to get home. I don't want to have to do the roundabouts to get home. I live in the front part of the neighborhood, so I'm fortunate. Yes, it is a speedway down through there much of the time. But speaking for myself, and I think for a good portion of my neighbors, we don't want to open up our neighborhood to strangers cutting through that don't care about us. They don't care about the coziness of our neighborhood. We want to stay a neighborhood. There's many neighborhoods in town that are not connected. It might not be so bad for some of those stubs to have maybe a cul-de-sac or something if you have to build all those houses. But you don't have to build all those houses. I know it's already in the land use plan. I understand about land use and zoning. I've been coming up here since 1989 to talk about certain build-outs. I was there before Glenbrook. I was there before the Triangle. I was there before where Food Line used to be across the street. I was there before the bypass was even connected. Now, I'm not against, you can't bite progress to zero. I realize that Stop 30 does need to be widened because it is, like the gentleman said, just to go a couple of blocks to that restaurant from New Shackle Island is white knuckle. I like the idea of just the 3-lane. It's got to be bad enough living in a neighborhood where when they widen the bypass and the traffic's going to be flying down on this side of our neighborhood, I live closer to that side, and then when you widen Stop 30, and all the traffic's going to be coming down this neighborhood, so we're going to live between 2 highways that are like that. The sound of the traffic from the bypass already, if you go outside, you could hardly hear yourself talk. That's right. You could, it's, even when it's green and you have the trees and stuff, it is so loud that to stand outside and talk to your neighbor, you almost have to shout sometimes. And the sound of the sirens night after night after night, the accidents or whatever's happening is constant. So we want to keep our neighborhood closed. You know, we don't want people to be able to cut through our neighborhood. And if I lived in the back of the neighborhood, I would want the people living in the front of the neighborhood driving through there, in the back there too, because then that's more traffic for them. We want a closed neighborhood. We want to keep the coziness. We don't want the extra traffic. We don't want the extra possible crime. We don't want the extra strangers in our midst. And so, hopefully I said everything I wanted to say, but that was the main point. We don't want another connect through our neighborhood. If we don't want it going from Creekwood to Stop 30 in front of the bank, we sure as don't want it all the way through. Our neighborhood means a lot to us. Many of us, including me, have lived there for over 30 years, or at least 20-something plus. We have very few new people there. It's not that we don't welcome newer families and things like that, but usually they have young children. They want to feel safe that when their kid is riding up and down the street or playing in the front yard, that there's not strangers, all these extra strangers coming through our neighborhood that we don't know who they are or have an idea of who they are, because nobody comes in unless you live there, you're visiting somebody and they know you, or you're doing business with somebody there. And that's the way we'd like to keep it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan Dacus?
Hello, my name is Jonathan Dacus. I live on Valley Drive in the Creekwood neighborhood. I have a question about your option B, new road. It's shown as going through multiple different, I think 14 maybe, slide 14.
Well, I think any one of these will do.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it goes through multiple different lots there. So that sort of presumes that all of those people would want to develop. What happens if only one of those wants to develop and the others don't? Is that road going to be forced through after that, or what's the plan if only one of those people want to develop?
Do you want to answer that?
Sure. Yeah, I can take that. So that the answer is no. The road would be entirely contingent upon the owner of the property wanting to do a development, and then in that case being held to the requirement to build their part of the road. So in the event that you had bookend developments in the parcel in the middle, there was nothing happening on it. There would not be any kind of forced requirement to require that owner to build that portion of the road. I would think if in the event that happened, the city may want to consider options for helping to kind of spur development of that last remaining chunk.
So what does that mean?
Just
spur development.
Just finding some mechanism by which to encourage the developer to build their part of the road.
So it seems like there's a lot hinging on that road being built, if only maybe one or two of those lots wanted to develop. So that's really my question. So you're more pressure essentially on people that didn't want to develop to connect that road would be the case.
Yes, and I think it is a concept plan. It's a long-term vision. It's not something that's going to happen immediately. We recognize that. So it is contingent on development.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Okay, so that is the remainder of folks who are on the list. If other folks have questions, you're welcome to make your way up to the podium and state your name and address, and we'll answer questions.
My name is Tim Jones. I live at 112 Georgetown Drive. I'm the county commissioner for that area, half of that road, Stop 30. Christy Miller is District 24. I'm 23, and we both kind of split Stop 30 right there. I wanted to speak about a few things. I had a few questions, but I wanted to speak to the public here, just so they understand some things. But I also have some statements for you guys to think about and some questions. Creekwood, I grew up in that neighborhood. I didn't live there, but my best friend did. So I'm very familiar with that neighborhood, and it'd be a travesty to run a road through that neighborhood. It's basically a giant dead-end road, cul-de-sac neighborhood. So it's very quaint and safe to raise kids in, and I think the people that live there have lived there for a long time because of that. It's their own little nook of Hendersonville, if you will. You mentioned some of the stub outs that they have over there for future build outs. They haven't been built out yet. They haven't been built out for this whole time. I'll talk a little more about that in a second. One of the questions I had was, why is there only a new road option for Plan B? Why was that not in Plan A also?
Obviously, a new road is a large expense.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a recognition that in order to justify the expense of a new road, somebody who's developing a piece of property has to have the ability to have a return on his investment or their investment. So option A is lower intensity development, and I think in recognition that there's not quite as much room for that return, that trying to leverage a new road out of that level of development would not be workable.
Well, return on investment leads me to believe that new road would just bring in more and more people to the development that would be there, the option B type development. Mm-hmm. Would that be a correct
I'm sorry, what was the
assessment?
question?
It leads me
Yes.
to believe that option B would bring in even more people to that area.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
So, option A, leaving it residential, could you not force a developer that wanted to develop that area to build more road, to improve the road for all the houses they want to put in?
I think that is part of option A, is to require existing Stop 30, not the new road, but existing Stop 30 to upgrade that road.
Correct.
Well, you could bring that new road through part of that also. That could be another option. I'm just throwing it out there.
One thing I might explain is, so this is a future land use and transportation plan. So if something ends up on this document, then that's something when any of the properties develop, and a developer is developing it, we can say, hey, you gotta build this road, and this is the way we want it built, and we roughly want it in this area, and you gotta stub it out over here and over there. So if it's on this plan, then we can hold them to it. But so, for example, if we have that road on there, on B, that's on there, then any development, we're gonna hold them to that.
I understand that. That's
Yeah.
why I'm asking if you could put that road on A and hold them to that.
Yeah, I mean, you could, but as Mr. Witten was saying, the intensity of development probably wouldn't support.
It doesn't matter.
The
If you put it on there, you could hold them to that, is my point. You could. You don't have to, but you could, right?
You could hold them to
Okay.
that.
So my point is, I'm beholden to the citizens, not the developers. And so what I'm hearing is a lot of people don't want this area developed. Make it so expensive that they can't develop it. So that needs to be an option. That needs to be considered. And I know you guys are throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, but overwhelmingly the people are saying they don't want this area developed. Just think about that. So the multi-use pathways that were shown on the slide, could you put those up on there? That's really another term for greenway. I really don't like greenways because that land belongs to somebody. The only way to get that is to take somebody else's land. So I think a lot of people would have a problem with that. An important question that has been talked about between several cities in the county is, do you guys plan, and I guess this is to you, Keith, and the rest of the Planning Commission, do you guys plan to include the county in on any of this planning, since it will undoubtedly affect the school systems, which would affect every citizen in the county's taxes? Any growth affects all citizens in the county. You have to pay for schools. And even if it's not in your area, you got Westmoreland people are going to have to pay for the schools this is going to impact.
But we do have them.
So we at the county would love to be included in some of these discussions on things that are going to impact the county. That's not county land, but it will impact the county. Do you guys have a plan to sit down with the county and talk to them about this, or would you consider that?
I think it's something as we get past this meeting, and then we have our work session with the Planning Commission and see the direction at which the plan's going. Then we will communicate with the Sumner County planning staff and provide that information to them to get their feedback on that. With the residential element of what we're talking about here, we're talking about, yeah, there you go, the reduction of that. If it was definitely something where we were looking at significant residential increases, then that's something we definitely would already be pursuing something with the school system. But with this particular area, there's not, we're only looking at options with reduction or leaving it the same. We're not looking at increased densities, and one of the reasons is that our Planning Commission, and I think, and also reflective of our Board of Mayor and Aldermen as well, is that they're very sensitive to higher density and what that brings, not only just for school system things, but for things as far as available green space, and then also traffic and the impact that development has. So they're sensitive to that, and that's one of the reasons this doesn't include any increase in residential unit development.
Well, you say that, but there's an argument to be made by changing it from what it is now to anything else that is going to be more appealing for developers who may not have done anything with it for as long as it's been, that may relook at it with this new options for developing. So this plan could possibly spark some ideas in developers' minds that want to bring things in. Something to consider, and as the county would, I speak for most of my commissioners, I think, would like to be included in these talks in the beginning part of the planning to see if there's any input we could put into how to better pay for the growth that it's undoubtedly going to cause. Growth does not pay for itself in Sumner County. Everybody disagrees on that back and forth, but it's proven over and over and over again when taxes go up and we're building schools all the time. So I just think it really needs to be considered. Option C, a lot of people have talked about it tonight, is just leave it alone, and it would entail making the developers pay for all of these improvements that the area needs. If developers are forced to pay for these with impact fees, that is how you slow the growth. And like I said, I'm here for the citizens. What I say is not going to be popular with developers. I realize that, but I don't work for them.
Thank you. And just to reiterate, that column you see on the right, that's if we do nothing, that's what developers can build right now. So doing nothing doesn't mean that the land would never get developed. It's just going to develop it in a different way. So just wanted to remind folks of that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Listen, Mike Banfield, 103 Green Meadows Drive. Other than widening stop 30 a bit for safety reasons, I just got to ask why. Why this? And what would you do if you lived here?
So I understand your question is why beyond maybe, as David had said earlier, why, adding shoulders and then painting it a little more narrow.
When you come up, when you do a survey and you allow an A and B, you're pretty much skewing the perspective of things. You're not putting in the obvious of, a lot of questions, multiple choice questions they give you, or none of the above. When you give an A and B, you're giving a skewed perspective of it and not an entirety, when there may be a boatload of people that would be totally against it. It does need to be widened. Seriously, I've tapped mirrors 3 times with oncoming trucks. So
That's no fun.
That needs to be done, absolutely. But, I'm from a state that I'm embarrassed to be from, and I moved here to get away from that, and I don't want this place to become that. So.
Understood. All right.
I would just point out, again, the options that are presented in this plan is not meant to be a limiting factor. Obviously, we have to have something to start with, some sort of baseline. But again, that's part of what this process is for, is to flesh out, which option we want to go with, how do we want to change those options. That's what this process is for. So it's not in any way meant to limit you to just 2 choices. And in fact,
right.
I think we had several responses that said we don't like either option.
I mean, I've just moved here 2.5 years ago, but what's Hendersonville goal? What do they want development? I mean, you have a choice. I mean, I didn't move here. I moved here to get away from things like this. And I understand that things need to grow, but it also doesn't have to. I mean, we leave that in your guys' hands, or the council members' hands, or whoever hands it's in. And go ahead.
And I can address that. Is actually this process that we're doing right now, it's to answer exactly that question, and it's not going to be something that the planning staff is going to answer that. That's why this is a integrated public process where all of the things that you shared and with as Timothy had stated, that a lot of folks did share exactly what you were saying on the survey. They didn't like either one of the options, and we've read that. But part of the whole process is exactly what everybody that's already sat at that podium tonight and will hear over the next hour or so. All of that information that's helping build what it is that we want to be, and really and we're just looking at this specific area, but that's the question we're trying to answer is, what does this area want to be? Does it want to be something different than what's already there?
I think it just wants to be left alone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I understand
Sorry,
that.
I'm just a very blunt person.
And it's very possible through that process that may end up close to that. It could be a reaffirmation of the majority of what's already in the future land use plan, but this process will bring all of that out. And then our planning commission will be, looking at all of this, and then, we'll have an actual public hearing and then plenty of time for people to respond to whatever the final draft of the plan is, and then decisions will eventually be made about what that is. But just know that, just know that the things that you're sharing, they're being taken in a very productive manner, and so we understand that as the staff. The planning commissioners understand that as well, and we take all of that in this process, and it will impact the process. Several things that folks have said tonight have impacted me on how I'm looking at it, and I know the staff and the planning commissioners and even BOMA members that are here, I'm sure some of the things they've heard tonight has impacted how they're looking at it just a little bit different. So we will answer that question at the end of this process. But as a community, with the challenges that we have, with the growth that we have, we've got to plan and we've got to look at these things. They're difficult to do, and leaving it alone sometimes seems to be the easiest thing, and it would be easy for everybody on a lot of things to leave it alone. But we've got to at least look at things from a planning perspective and cast a vision into the future to refine exactly what it is we want to be as a community. And then specifically tonight, what is it we want Stop 30 and Creekwood and an impacted area, what do we want that area to be? So that's a very good question.
Do we know what we want to be as a city? I mean, I'll let it be. Thank you, I appreciate it.
My name is Lloyd Pearson. I live at 1022 Rutherford Way, right on Stop 30 in Lawson's Point. Could you put the slide up with a picture of the new road that you've been throwing up? No, that, perfect. Now what I'm looking at there is a sidewalk, 2 lanes and a half, and somebody walking in the field, I guess, of the farm over there, because you didn't give them a sidewalk to walk on. But if you extend the road, which it does need extending, now I'm just talking as a owner of a house in Lawson Point, how much land are you going to pull over on the Lawson Point side compared to the other side? A lot of my neighbors have fences on their property. Are y'all going to go in and knock all those fences down? Are you going to take that much land? Are we going to be able to do a drive-through service for the people going down Stop 30 for the road traffic? I can hear what you're listening to on your radio when you are stuck in traffic across my house. That's okay. We need to widen it.
Sure.
I agree it needs widened. But you can only take so much land from the Lawson Point side. Now, is that fair to the farmer who we love watching the fields over there and watching the deer and stuff for the last 25 years? We love that farm, but once you take the line, take the property and build your road, is the city going to say, oh, by the way, we have an easement, we can get 20 more feet if we want it, after the fact? Is that fair to the farmer, or is that fair to us as the owners of Lawson Point? My basic question is, how much land on the Lawson Point side are you going to, because there's not a whole lot of distance there.
Right. There are two things that we're looking at. One are those initial improvements that we talked about to improve safety and slow down traffic, and that's what's being designed right now. I'll let David talk to that.
If the current design, it's preliminary, but what we're looking at is there's a lot of homes, there's fences, there's backyards, there's driveways, there's side roads all along that north side. In the south side, there is more room to work with. The widening we're talking about is a few feet of widening to make it safer. It's not this 3-lane section yet. This is what you see that would be much more possible if that farmland were to develop and you could do the right-of-way dedication, as was mentioned on that one property earlier, where you could do some of this stuff. But for the short-term improvements, we're looking at mostly widening to the south and minimizing property impacts as much as possible.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but in your proposal or the plan that you've got in place now, is the utilities going to be moved?
So the question, just so everyone listening home could hear, the question was under the what's being designed right now, are the utilities going to be moved? Is that right?
Correct. It was impossible to avoid all utilities, but most of the overhead utilities are on the north side of the road, as well as a force main sewer. Those are all avoided, but there are still some underground utilities on the south side, as well as some overhead. So it's not avoiding all of it, but it's minimizing impacts.
The reason for asking that is it tells us how much roadway you're moving. If you're not moving the utilities, then the sidewalk's going to go where Stop 30 currently is, and then Stop 30 is going to be expanded into Farmers Field.
And there's no design for this yet. This is just a section of development that would increased development, a 3-lane section is probably required. If there's more residential, it'd be great to have sidewalks and a multi-use trail. So this hasn't been designed yet, so I can't tell you where this goes exactly, but all we've looked at so far on the design side is that widened 2-lane section with shoulders.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, very good.
Okay, my last question is just something you already touched on. The third stoplight in between the two. Have you ever tried to go to a beach basketball game or a football game and how backed up that street already is? It just don't move. It's stopped. You would have massive traffic jams with a third light there between those two lights. There'd be no way to release the traffic. That's it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna speak now. He stole my thunder. Jim Waters, Alderman, Ward 6. How many from Ward 6 is here tonight? God bless you. Thank you for coming. How many from Sumner County outside of Hendersonville is here tonight? 2? 3? How many did you contact? Did you contact all your Sumner County people? You did? Good. I just want to make that point. This is for Hendersonville, Ward 6, right here. It's so important to me and to my colleague, Eddie Robinson, who is also an alderman in Ward 6. I appreciate you coming, and I just want to ask a couple of questions. Sure. I know that's just a drawing, but I like it. I like it. You'd be surprised how many calls or emails I get about wrecks, about traffic, about speed, and we've got to do something with Stop 30. Now, my next question, and I don't think I can get it on that one, when you're going up the hill, I think it's probably 12, or who's got it? No, go back.
Keep going.
Oh, whoa, right there.
All right.
Now, I'm looking at that arrow going down, was it going south?
Which one?
Okay.
Right here?
Where do you start that new road?
So the new road starts at New Shackle Island, and then it
starts where?
folds in right around the...
It starts where?
At So this is New Shackle Island right here. And so the road starts there, and then it sort of curves up. And before it hits Drake's Creek, it folds into Stop 30 Road.
Right by the horse farm.
Yes. So this is the horse farm, and this is where the road would
I'm very familiar with the horse barn. Okay. So you're coming off of how far back down are we? You're going to start that new road?
Just north of the Bed Cliff.
Who's talking? I'm talking to him. I'm confused enough. Is it going to start at your house?
No, I live further up, but I can read a map. It comes out north of the Bed Cliff.
Okay. Okay. So that new road is going to come all the way up to NSI, right? Your Shackle.
Yes, sir.
And that side of the road, I know from your experience, we've got a gas line right up there on top of that hill. It belongs to Mr. Barrett. He's gone, property. He owns that property there. And he and I have talked about that many, many times, about the gas line. It's right there on his property. Have y'all considered that? Because that's the side you're going to come over on, more so than the north, according to what I just heard a minute ago.
You're talking about on Stop 30 Road?
Stop 30 going towards New Shackle Island. When you hit Margaret,
so right around here.
Across the street is Mr. Barrett's home. All that acres he owns, and there's a gas line right in a gas meter, I guess, a gas line. Keith, you may be familiar with it. I don't know, but have y'all thought about that?
I'll let David answer that. I know they have.
Yeah. Yep. There's there's no plans yet for exactly what utilities may move or not, because we're very early in the process. But we know where all the utilities are. There are underground utilities on both sides of the road the whole way. So any widening either way is going to have some impacts. But if any widening would be done, any utility relocations would be done to accommodate
I
it.
realize this is just a plan, but I'm just bringing this to your attention.
It's a concern.
Because it's
Yes,
been a
sir.
discussion with us for several months now, but I'm not opposing that. I want something done with Stop 30. That means widen it. But we got to be cautious how we widen it. I like the plan you had up there. If you widen Stop 30, do you still have to make that road go off and go down to Creekwood? You don't. That'll be gone.
Well, so there are two options.
See, that goes all the way to New Shackle right there.
So this is option B,
Okay.
and then this is option A. So option A, Stop 30 Road would look like this.
Yeah.
Option B, the new road would look like that, and Stop 30 would look like this.
So that's A.
This is option B. So option A is there's no new road. It's just Stop 30 Road. So this is option A.
That's after you widen it right there.
Yes, sir.
You widen it to 3 lanes, you said?
Yes, sir. That's what it would look like.
From Drake's Creek to New Shackle.
Yes, sir.
I love you already. Go to the next slide.
This is option B.
All right.
So under option B, we would build a new road to New Shackle Island, and that new road would look like this.
Well, I don't know what my colleagues think about it, but I like A myself. If you're going to just go straight, make another lane, and go straight from one Drake's Creek to New Shackle Island, that way we don't have to worry about cutting through people's property and all that stuff. That's just my opinion.
Well, your opinion is shared by other people too. So these are this is the feedback that we've gotten so far.
Just to clarify, Mr. Waters.
24? Excuse me.
Just to clarify one thing and make sure everybody understands, with both those options, the current plan shows a connection cutting across to Creekwood Lane. Not that it has to end up that way, but with both option A and option B, they both show a connection from Stop 30 to Creekwood Lane.
I don't see that, Tim, on B.
Here,
I'll
show you a map that has both of them on there together with that connection.
Well, you're going so fast, I can't keep up with you.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the slides he was just showing was focusing on Stop 30, the improvements to Stop 30 itself. But the overall plans for option A and option B, you can see on both of those.
Okay.
Currently, they show that one connection to Creekwood Lane.
Why are you confusing me with that when you had that other one up there? I like the other one.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay. All right, thank you, Tim. Okay. I still like the other one. Now, has anything been mentioned about a flood plan down towards Drake's Creek, that flood area? That'd be strictly commercial, won't it, Keith?
It's green space. So
Yes.
this is where the Drake's Creek is. This is the floodway, the floodplain here, and it would be open space.
Yeah, okay. Good. So, I'll be through in a minute. If we go all the way to the end of Stop 30 at intersection at New Shackle Island, how much of that property of the church that was mentioned earlier will this consume?
Under option A, if we were to widen Stop 30 Road, we would definitely need to acquire some right-of-way on the church property in order to do that, both to widen the road and to improve that intersection. And it seemed from their engineer earlier, they seemed amenable to that, knowing that it would take some additional right-of-way to be able to do that. We can't say for sure how much, but conceptually, right now, there's 50 feet of right-of-way total, and to build what we just showed you would require about 80 feet total, so about 30 more feet of right-of-way, conceptually.
Okay. Getting back to the stop 30, there's nothing to be done on the north side, right? North. I think that's...
We can't say for sure, but as the gentleman earlier pointed out, on the north side, there's already a lot of fences and neighborhoods and things, and the farmland is on the south side. So if you're going to take right of way, it would stand to reason that it would be more on that side.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My name is Julie McClendon. I live at 1214 Spear Point Drive, so on the other side of Drakes Creek.
Okay.
I don't think anyone has spoken tonight from that area. My husband's here, and my parents as well. We're all fired up, but I'm not going to talk about everything. But I am going to talk about, yes, it needs to be widened, and it needs to be safer, and it is crazy, and you feel like you're going to run into everybody. Why do both of these options include anything commercial? Why is that a necessity? Do you want commercial properties on that road? So nobody's really talked about that. And so that's what I'm asking you. Why does this have to include commercial? We want the commercial businesses to stay on the other side of 386. We don't need them in our neighborhoods. I don't want to drive out of my neighborhood into a Publix or a pizza place or a gas station at all, as I don't think you do either. And we like our communities, we like them quiet, and we do not want commercial businesses at all. Is that an option?
I mean, I'll let you answer, Timothy.
Yes, it's an option.
Where is it?
Well, this is the first draft. That's why we're having this meeting.
But it's not even an option listed right now.
Well, but yeah, you're correct. It's not listed
on the
option.
survey, A or B.
Sure, understood. That's what this process is for. Is to again to hear what the community wants, what the neighborhood wants to see, to weigh those concerns with the city's overall vision for this area.
We might have different visions. You don't live there, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But when you're doing a land use plan, you need to look at what's possible.
I think it's what the people want.
You're dealing with other people.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So our values of our properties, if you add all that commercial stuff, we'll tank. Tank.
Sure, I understood. I think, again, the majority of the surveys that we've gotten back have expressed either a preference for option A or maybe no option at all. But there have been responses that liked option A or option B.
Because you only gave us a choice of A or B. And then a little comment section.
The point is,
You can't get off the survey unless you pick A or B.
Right.
the point is that the concept of retail and office and things like that, it was liked by some respondents. So
The percentage?
Anybody here?
The percentage
about a
of
third.
Chosen
About a
or
third
liked?
of the.
Chosen or liked? Which one? It was chosen or it was liked?
Well, I think it was both. Some said they liked the idea. Again, it was a clear minority. But my point is not the percentage. My point is to when you're presenting options. My point about we want to present a range of options, allow people to respond to that, maybe weed out one or two or whatever, and then come up with a plan that forms a consensus. And that's the job of staff and, well, the planning commission is to hear what's being said in the public meeting, and weigh that and come up with a viable plan.
And Timothy, I'll also point out, just to be clear, because we presented an option A and option B on the survey, doesn't mean it's either going to be one of those or the other. Is that we provided an opportunity for people to write in comments, and we're having this meeting tonight to hear feedback that will then influence, right, the direction that we head, which could be something different, than option A or B. So we don't want to give you the impression that it's only going to be, A or B, and that's going to be it. That's why we're here tonight, to kind of hear feedback. And so we definitely hear you.
Well, that was the option. That's what we all heard, was it's A or B. But my point also is there's a lot of commercial space in Hendersonville that I see open lands, open place for other businesses. It does not need to be on this road. It does not need to be on this side of 386. There's tons of opportunity for development in the town. We drive by all day long. It does not need to be in our neighborhoods. And I just hope you're hearing that like loud and clear. Also, if you decide to, whatever plan you're going to propose, you're saying will this go to a ballot vote or no? Ever? Would this ever get to like a place where we could vote on this?
Like a referendum?
No, no, it goes to the planning commission with a public hearing is ultimately where it goes.
But it's never a vote.
Correct. It's a vote of the planning commission.
Can it be a ballot initiative?
I don't believe there's a mechanism for that.
Can we initiate a mechanism where the people can vote on it?
Well, so this process that we're going through is mandated by state law. State law lays out the requirement to do the process for doing a land use plan and then zoning that arises out of that. This is the process that's, yes, sir, state.
Excuse me, does the state law prohibit a?
It does not, well, it does not include a ballot initiative as part of that process, so yes.
But that's not prohibiting.
Well, it again.
That's what he's asking.
Correct.
Yeah, what it is the state law is clear on if you have zoning, you got to do these kind of things, and then it's specific. If you do these kind of things, this is the process to go, and that the planning commission has the final decision on it. It may be something that state law could be changed to make that happen, but currently this is within the state law.
Okay.
And we need to redress.
It's my birthday, so I'm going to go home and eat cake now.
Richard Waltz, 102 Arrowhead Drive. The grandkids are not able to play in the yard anymore because of the traffic that's coming off the farm. But they were able to play on the street in the water from the flood. Have you taken care of floods like that?
My name is Eddie Robertson, and I live on Smoke Rise Lane in Ward 6. I'm one of the aldermen in Ward 6. And I've just got a couple of statements. I stated in the earlier stakeholders group that I was opposed to the connection from Stop 30 to Creekwood, and I still stand by that. I think I think that I'm a big neighborhood proponent, and I believe that this would damage the neighborhood. And I believe we must look for another option than to go through Creekwood. I would not, as an alderman, support any zoning requirements that would come as a result of this plan to BOMA. And I do have a question. The existing connections, the stub outs that we've talked about, I think it's been mentioned that there are 5 into Creekwood. For those to be opened up, would that have to come to BOMA? Would BOMA have to approve those stub outs?
No, sir. You're talking about making a connection to those stub outs by adjacent development? No, they would have a right to connect to existing right-of-way.
So BOMA wouldn't have a voice in that. We would have a voice on any zoning matters, though, that
Correct.
as a result of a development desiring to connect into Creekwood, we would have a vote on those zoning, any zoning change or planned unit developments or anything like that, correct?
Correct. If somebody wanted to rezone the property to something else, then
Yeah. And I'll assure the audience here that I will not support any rezoning that would allow the stub outs to be opened up into Creekwood. I do want to say this too. One of the problems with Stop 30 is the development, both in the city and the county, from Durham Farms, which is a city development, Autumn Creek, which is a city development, Norman Retreat, which is a county development. All of these people, including myself, when I want to go to Glenbrook and when I want to go to Costco when it opens up shortly, we go down Stop 30. So one of the things that I worked with Mr. Waters on as soon as I was elected is we've got to get the improvement to Old Drakes Creek and New Shackle Island Road. Right now, that is a hazard. There have been wrecks. So I want to thank my county commissioners, Commissioner Jones and also Miller, for supporting. This is a joint city-county effort to improve that intersection. Now, what will that intersection do? There's going to be a traffic light there. There's going to be turn lanes. So what we'll do in that end of Ward 6, instead of going to Stop 30, we won't need to go to Stop 30 to get to either Beach or to get to Glenbrook. We'll go on this new intersection. So I'm hopeful that that will reduce some of the traffic on Stop 30. Do you follow me? I mean, and the city and county is working hard on that. The county engineer is working on that. I've just talked to him, and we're making progress on it. I think it's gone to design now. So that's a kind of an improvement that's going to help Stop 30. I do support improving Stop 30. Now, it was in budget discussions for next year, Stop 30. It shows it as a future development. It was estimated to cost $3 million to improve Stop 30, to widen it and put gutters and shoulders on the road. And we had to take it out of the budget. We didn't have the money. It's going to cost $3 million. We just didn't have the money. We're also having to cut paving 35%. We just don't have the money. So, but I think BOMA, I know Mr. Waters and I, and the county commissioners, we are in favor of improving Stop 30, and we will do whatever is necessary, but money doesn't grow on trees. And we're going to have to somehow raise the money to fix Stop 30. Let me ask you, because I do hear from county commissioners, heard from them Saturday several times at a meeting I was in, about school impact. So what's the methodology for determining school impact on residential development? And I know that option A has less residential development than the current. So does that mean that option A would have less impact on our public schools in Sumner County?
That's correct. And we don't have the data here tonight, but we did look at school impacts. And as you very accurately pointed out, they are a direct result of dwelling units, because people, they buy a home and they have kids, and the kids go into the school system. So by virtue of that fact, what's entitled right now under existing zoning would generate more students than either option A or option B. So either one of those options would have less impacts on schools than doing nothing, which is existing zoning.
Perfect. I thought that was the methodology used, but I wanted to verify it. And Keith, could we put this PowerPoint on the website, on the planning website, so people could go and look at it and pull it down, or is it already there?
It's already there,
Okay.
but probably we made a few changes for tonight's, I believe, and we'll post that up there tomorrow.
And we can add school impacts if you want.
Let me ask you, if we do that, can we do another survey and include question C, no change? option C, having option C, because I don't think that was an option. It was only option A and B, and I
Correct.
understand that. But I think the people want an opportunity to express themselves, and I think that input would be important as you move forward. So a new survey with option C, leave it as it is.
Yes, we can do that.
Great.
What's that?
Well, we're going to widen stop 30. We're going to widen stop 30 if we can find the money.
Yeah.
If we can get the money.
Yeah, Alderman, we can, we'll do that. Now, that new survey won't be out tomorrow. We'll want to wait, and then when we've got something, we've got the new version of
Gotcha.
it to get it out, so then we get everybody's reaction to that. But we'll make sure, we'll be very sensitive to making sure there's plenty of options.
And
you know,
let me
with that.
assure you that Mr. Waters and I will keep you informed. The best way we can keep you informed is going through your HOA Facebook post. And we do that in trying to get the message out. So when that's available, we'll let you know that it is available. Let me ask you, the new road, the option B, I believe, the new road, does that negate the need to go through Creekwood?
No.
Would that negate it? No. Well, I'm asking the planner. If that new road, which let's call it Stop 29. If
Well, that's
Stop
what we call it,
29 was in, would that negate any need to go through Creekwood if that was approved? If that was part of the plan?
It doesn't negate, if I can, but it doesn't negate a need for connectivity just from a connectivity standpoint. So.
I will
but it-
say,
but-
sorry to interrupt you, Timothy.
Okay.
If the new road were in place, it would most definitely draw traffic off of Stop 30 as well as Creekwood, because you have a new option to turn right to get on to Stop 30. So option B compared to option A, option B would have less traffic on either Stop 30 or on Creekwood.
And what's the distinction, local only? You said if the new road is put in, let's say Stop 29, and you would put a sign on the existing Stop 30, local traffic only. What does that mean?
So essentially, if you're coming down Stop 30, the road would continue to the south like this, and then we haven't designed this obviously, but this would more likely be a T here, and the road would come to the south, and that would effectively be your connection.
Okay.
To get from east to west.
So on the improvements on Stop 30, when it intersects New Shackle, are there right turn lanes that would be added? Because a lot of the traffic that comes out there is headed toward Beach High School, and the schools on Long Hollow. So would Stop 30 have a turn lane to the right, an additional turn lane to the right that they could turn on? It would? Okay, that's important. Tim, this is a question for you, or Keith has stepped out. Y'all have got good bladders, I'm telling you. Been here so long. Would any of these plans, we're seeing a trend in homes for rent. These huge developments that are owned by out-of-state corporations, they come in and build individual homes and then rent them out. They're not owner-occupied homes. Would any of these plans or the existing plans prevent that kind of development?
I would not say they would prevent. I would say they would lessen. They would lessen the possibility of it. If you can go back to the current 2009 land use plan. So this is the plan that's currently in place. You can see all that area between Drakes Creek Road and New Shackle. All that suburban living existing allows 3 units per acre.
Mm-hmm.
All that can be developed. It's all SR1. Could all be developed tomorrow without any requirement to do any upgrades. Widening of Stop 30. So I think that the current land use plan, well, if we go to an option A or option B or any other option with intensified requirements, it lessens the desirability of those properties for
rental.
For rental that need kind of lesser property values, and that's what they thrive on. So
Yes, yes. Keith, and I'm about finished. There's a lot of discussion of preemption by the federal government of local zoning authority. And I'm real concerned because I see the tentacles of the federal government reaching further and further and further in our lives. And so I'm concerned about federal preemption by requiring in every residential development apartments, high-rise apartments or multifamily. What's the risk there, and which option helps us, or does either option help us on the threat of federal preemption from the federal government to take away our zoning authority?
I think neither option protects us from that potential. And that is an active potential. And the thing about it that's interesting is, of course, there's housing advocates, and I mean, we all experience it with our families and the cost of homes here. And if you've got relatives that want to move here, or kids that want to buy a home here or in Sumner County, I mean, it's very expensive. So there's a lot of folks that are on that side of you know, more affordable housing, those types of things. But the thing about it is it's not just that. It's also on the development side. So the rental interest or the development interest. So it actually it spans across the
Strange
potential.
bedfellows.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually something that most states, you know, are succumbing to, and it's something that's been consistent at the federal level in the last several years. So it's just something that really there wouldn't be option A, B, or D, you know, if the state or the federal government took away some of those some of the controls that the local government has, then you know, there really wouldn't be much that you could do. And then, you know, that could be 20 years away, 100 years away, or 4 years away. It's just hard to say.
So my last question, Keith, is it's been mentioned that the secondary zoning for this existing could be multifamily units. But would not that require BOMA's approval?
yes, that would require Planning Commission and then BOMA approval
And
in order to get that.
I have to say this, I think any opportunity for that to pass BOMA at the present time stands less chance than a snowball in hell, you know. And so I just don't think that is a viable threat, not a threat, but risk involved. So with those comments, thank you for your time.
And I would add that both option A and option B would also require rezoning approval as well. Yeah. So everything that we're proposing, even if it's adopted, would require approval through rezoning.
That it would not.
No, existing zoning will not. So right now,
No, one gentleman asked if option A or option B would require rezoning, and the answer was no.
it doesn't require the county to, it doesn't require the city to rezone it. It doesn't obligate anyone to rezone it. But if you were going to rezone it, it would require approval. Did I not make that clear?
Make yourself clear. That's pretty muddy.
All right, so basically what I'm saying, if the city decides to adopt a different plan for Stop 30, it doesn't obligate the property owners to rezone their land. They can keep the land how it's currently zoned.
But if it ever went for sale, the new zoning would kick in?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
No. All this plan does is guide future BOMA decisions. And so if a property owner, so this is what the property is zoned right now. Yep. So right now, if they want to come in, they don't need rezoning. This is what it's currently zoned for. Any plan at all that's adopted, either the current plan or one of the future plans that we're considering, would require a rezoning.
It guides them to where they know they can approve that if they want to in a
Correct.
planning commission meeting.
Correct.
Which they could do anyway without that, but this guides them with the plan that they accepted however many years ago.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't make that clear earlier.
Well,
Yep.
the gentleman asked the question, I was hating for him because he may have been confused on that. He asked it pretty point blank. Did it require?
So the next step, folks, is for you to come to the planning commission. When the new plan comes out, and hopefully the new survey, you'll have an opportunity for more input. And then the final plan will go to the planning commission, and that will be the next opportunity for you to address your concerns. And I trust the planning commission. They made a good decision on the West Main or West Lake plan. They listened to the people that came out. They had crowds like this at that meeting, or maybe even larger. So that'll be the next opportunity. This is not one and done. The next step is the planning commission, and Jim and I will make sure that you're aware of when that meeting is. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Christy Galletti. I'm at 1022 Margaret, Lawson Point. When we moved here about 5 years ago, we looked out at the beautiful farm and we said, that's probably going to be built up soon, because we moved from Dallas, Texas, and we know how things progress. But the feel in Hendersonville is a bit different than Dallas. There's still, you appreciate the beauty of a farm, you appreciate the rolling hills, you appreciate all that stuff. At least that's what I was thinking. But it just kind of seems like the decisions that are being made in the rest of the city, that it's just kind of like, here's this chunk of land that's free, and who wants to come and build something on it? Everybody jokes about the 7 chicken places down Main Street. I mean, it's just, kind of a funny thing. But when it comes into your backyard, you're like, okay, hold up. So I drive Stop 30 every day down to Burris, where I take my little kid to school. And it seems like every day I wonder, am I going to get in an accident? Because, people are in my lane pretty much every day. And I've got 2 little kids in the back seat with me, and I cannot look at anything else other than the road when I drive down there. And it's very, very scary, and it's very sad that there's no way for the city to come up with anything other than gravel on the side of the road to help us feel like we can actually get where we need to go and arrive there in one piece. And to touch on, kind of the plans for the road, it seems like the ship has already sailed with the feel of that area. You've got all of the houses that their driveways come out to Stop 30. You're talking about adding commercial property. You're talking about, adding, like people have mentioned, Publix, all kinds of extra traffic that is going to be on that road. So how is the city planning to accommodate and address the safety concerns of us pulling out of Margaret Drive onto Stop 30, or the people who are pulling out of their driveways to get on Stop 30? I mean, we're talking about increase in traffic, but still 2 lanes. So what are the thoughts on that?
I think the cross section that you saw of Stop 30, as Kevin pointed out, this is a concept. If either of these options were adopted, at some point designs would have to be done, and within that context, driveway connections would have to be looked at and made part of that design.
What does that mean? What would a driveway connection look like for, let's say, the houses right past, what's the neighborhood next to Lawson Point? Whatever that is. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just if there was any widening, we'd take into account where the existing driveways tie in, and any modifications would be done as part of the project. I think that's all.
But
that's
what
all I
is,
mean.
I guess, what would be a safety feature added to that road? Because if there's increased traffic,
Right.
Yep.
And their driveways are coming directly into that road, correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, what's the difference?
So here, a couple of safety features that I can point out just on this slide would be the introduction of that center turn lane. So right now, if you want to make a turn to or from stop 30, you have to stop, and you're stopping traffic, and it's a safety concern because then you could have rear end collisions and things like that. So one of the safety features would be the addition of that center turn lane. He's excited about it. So would be the addition of the center turn lane, which would take cars out of the travel to turn left. The other safety feature would be, you see that raised median there? That would limit left turns. So people that are coming out onto Stop 30 Road and making a left turn, the presence of a median would limit left turns to only locations where we want left turns to be done safely.
Well, let's say
Those are two safety features.
Let's say that, I'm at Margaret Drive, and let's say the median is right in front of my exit. So am I gonna have to go up to the turn lane and make a U-turn, which is illegal in Tennessee?
No. We would not recommend putting a median at a location where you couldn't otherwise make an effective left turn. So no, we would not require you to make a U-turn.
Okay.
It would be more for the properties on the other side. So when we talk about driveway modifications, so one of the things is before a site plan could be approved, the planning department would want to see, okay, where are you putting your driveways? We want to make sure that they're safely spaced and that people can see, coming in and out, and that they're properly aligned with the median openings. So those are some things that they could do to help promote safety. That would be an improvement over, what you're dealing with today.
I guess I'm still not really understanding how that addresses all the driveways that are,
Well, unfortunately, you can't.
I mean, yes, it addresses my neighborhood, but
unfortunately, we can't. The driveways that are there now, we can't obviously take them away, so we sort of have to work around them and deal with them. But for future development that happens on Stop 30 Road, the planning department does have tools at their disposal to make sure that doesn't, we don't continue to do that. So, and you're right, it is a concern.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I mean when I say the ship has sailed for the area. It is a rural, suburban, or whatever term you want to put on it, where there are larger lots. So is there any thought in the Planning Commission's mind to just make it all the estate type of whatever acreage you've allowed for?
Right, yeah, so everything east of Drake's Creek is ER currently.
I'm not good with directions. Which side?
If you're going across from Indian Lake, all that retail area north, going across the bypass, so all that orange area is a state residential, as well as orange area there on the top.
Okay.
That's one unit per acre currently.
And is there any thought to make the purple part the same? Because, I mean, you guys are kind of banking on people, I guess they're Barretts, the Barretts selling that large piece of property. So is there any thought to just make it all estate? Because, I mean, that would preserve, in my mind, I'm just a humble citizen, preserve in my mind the integrity of the area, But I know that doesn't really make the city much money to fund whatever stuff.
I think that would, that could be looked at as down zoning, so taking density away from the current owners. We try to stay away from that. I think that would be the primary kind of objection to doing something like that.
It would take what away from the
Take
Barretts?
density away from the property owners. So currently you're entitled to 3 units per acre. Down zoning would be saying you get less density than you currently have.
Well, that might be a good question to talk to the Barretts about, because they seem to be pretty pro keeping the land the way that it is.
And that's their option. That's always their option. They don't, no plan will force them to do anything. If they want to keep that land green, that's certainly their option, and none of the plans will change that.
Okay.
That's the majority of the homes that they're talking about being built too, though. So that ain't gonna happen.
But they're entitled, right now, the areas in purple, they're entitled to build at 3 units per acre, regardless of whatever plan we adopt or develop. That's what the current zoning is, so they're entitled to do that, or they're entitled to do nothing at all.
But it wouldn't be illegal to downgrade their zoning, right?
Yeah,
They
they
would
could
have to
choose to do
request
that.
Yeah, if they chose to do it, because the way it's zoned right now is, as Kevin was saying, you could do 3 units an acre. And then even if we had a future land use plan that said you can only do 1 unit every 5 acres, then you could have that, but that doesn't rezone it. They could still, the zoning isn't going to change unless they want to change it. And if somebody wanted to change it, then yeah, they could make big 5 acre lots or 1 acre lots, and they could do that. But this isn't actually zoning. There's an underlying zoning by right that they have that we're not changing that. We're just saying if there was rezonings, here's the parameters we want to have them in, whatever the vision is at the end of this process.
All right. Well, thank you for
Thank
answering
you.
my questions.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Van Kinsey. I live on Green Meadows Drive, and most of my questions have been answered. I just have one comment for the commission and the traffic guys, is when Mr. Meacham was talking, you looked up the 2010 or the 2013 traffic survey on Stop 30. It's doubled since then. I'm here to tell you there's been no development since then. So all of that traffic is people who don't live in my neighborhood, who don't live in that area. It's people using it as a cross street. That's only going to get worse as they build Costco, as they work on 386, or as they work on New Shackle Island. I can tell you now, I can sit on my front porch and tell when the traffic's backed up on the bypass because they're all going down Stop 30 the other end, one way or the other. So please take that into account when you're looking at the traffic surveys, as well as planning how big the road's going to be. I'm not sure you were the guy in charge, but I was here when they built the Indian Lake extension. And every 2 years, they're tearing up the median for another left turn. They didn't build it, and then 5 years later, they're tearing up 2 left turns to go to Walmart. So if you know there's going to be development, look ahead. I know money's an issue. I've heard the county commissioners talk to that. I know people got to give up their land, but growth has happened. And you got to take into account what's already happened as well as plan for the future. Or we'll put a 2-lane road in now, and then 5 years later, you'll be making it 3 lanes again when this development goes through. So, I mean, just like that dumb tunnel under the railroad track that was $3 million 5 years ago, and now it's $28 million for the same project. Things only go up. You can spend it now or spend it later. We've got to find it somewhere. The traffic's already bad. Like people have talked about, there's gravel that gets thrown up constantly. I can hear the cars and trucks going off the edge, especially the big, this time of year, the lawn service people with the trailers that go literally from white line to yellow line, and they go around that curve just past Green Meadows Drive, and they have to go off the edge because they can't fit the trailer, the turn is too tight. And so just take that into account. You're looking at the traffic planning. The last comment is, please fix the road before you do the development. I know, that's all I got to say is don't do the development and then fix the road. They were going to put a development across from me when the school owned that property, and the people were going to make a left turn lane right in front of my street, which would have been great for that 100 feet where there were 3 lanes, one to turn left, but it didn't help the rest of the road at all. So just take that into account when you're looking ahead, please. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you.
I know this is my second time up. David Levison, 321 Raindrop. If you do another survey, I'm kind of confused too on what the current zoning plan actually allows. Is there any way you could update the slideshow to kind of show like what could be built off of Creekwood or off that Creekwood neighborhood, even with no changes? Like, could somebody just come in? Could the Barretts do like 30 acres there, and somebody could just build off of that neighborhood, not even connecting to Stop 30?
Yes, we can add that. I think we actually had that at one point, but we can add a slide that shows existing zoning and then what could be done currently without any.
I know it's all hypotheticals, but I'm like confused on what actually could happen to my neighborhood, even if we don't change anything.
Yeah, if there was a development there, like what you're talking about, which we're not anticipating necessarily anything's going to happen with that property in the near future. But if it was, you couldn't just come off the stub outs of Creekwood. You'd have to connect to another street because actually, like, we don't allow neighborhoods now to be developed without multiple entries. So, larger neighborhoods of the size of Creekwood, we wouldn't approve those today, without having 2 entries. Or in the case of Creekwood, it was probably approved because it had multiple stub outs, but it wouldn't be but they'd have to stub out somewhere. And the only places would be, or to connect to another street for emergency response, and it would either have to be New Shackle or Stop 30. So if that helps answer that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joe Knight. I live at 140 Creekwood Lane. I haven't heard anyone speak that's living on Creekwood Lane. Our street, I walk that street every afternoon. I probably should have went and walked tonight instead of coming here, but we like our neighborhood just as it is. I know just about everybody in the neighborhood, or they know me. We may not know each other's names, but we know our faces, we know our cars. When I first moved to Hendersonville, coming home was like being on vacation. Such a peaceful, quiet community. I worked at Green Hills for 10 years. That's the way the traffic seems to me now. When I get ready to go somewhere in Hendersonville, I feel like I'm back in Green Hills, bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper traffic. I know that if you open up Creekwood, it's going to eliminate some of the congestion at certain points, but it's going to take away our life the way we like it. Now, what we also need to remember is this whole country is changing. We're bringing in, our neighborhood is constantly changing, where sometimes you have just husband and wife, and sometimes you have multiple family members. We see some Halloweens where we have thousands of kids running around, up and down the streets, and some, it hits where everybody has graduated and moved out and are on their own. So I would just ask that y'all, when y'all look at that, I know we've heard so much talk about widening in Stop 30, but there is one point on Creekwood where there's a bridge. It's pretty narrow, and I have seen some very, very bad wrecks. We're lucky nobody has lost their life on our street, and that's just our neighborhood. Well, now you got a lot of people delivering for Amazon and all these other places. That's more traffic coming in. I just want to keep my life the way it is, and I know progress has got to change, and I know that the city of Hendersonville has my best interest in heart, but I just want to represent Creekwood because I am Creekwood. I moved here 23 years ago. I would like to live here another 23 years. But if I put 10,000 more cars on my street, my property's for sale, and if any developers would like to buy my property, please holler, because I will not be able to walk to my mailbox until the traffic dies down, because it can be very scary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to say one last thing. When you guys come back with your new proposal, I would just encourage you to be very overly honest with the people. I think it will help them make a decision if you truly want their guidance. Mr. Barrett's property is a huge section of this land that's in question. If you've talked to him, surely you have. If you haven't, you need to. He told me sitting back there that he has no plans to sell that property anytime soon. His kids aren't going to sell that property anytime soon. That land is not going to be developed. Over his dead body, it's going to be developed. So, when you include it feels like a threat when you say how many houses could come under the current zoning. But if we do this, there's only going to be this many. That feels threatening, and it pushes people to make decisions. But if they know that for the next 50 years that land's not going to be developed, that may help them make a different decision about leaving it alone. I just ask that you be honest with the people on the survey, because otherwise it looks just like you're trying to find a way for developers to pave Stop 30. And if that's what it is, say that. If people are okay with developers paying for it, then that's what'll happen. If not, then their taxes may end up getting raised to fix the road. But be honest with the steering that's going on. It just feels too slimy. It feels like salesman approach. And I know that's not what you're wanting it to feel like, but that's what it feels like from out here. So just think about these things.
Thank you.
Anybody else before I know it's been a long evening, but hey, thanks for the diehards that have stayed to the end. We really appreciate it. Timothy? Yeah, we should have ordered pizza.
Well,
we
we're going to
would
go
have
over to the young lady's house for cake, your
Yeah.
birthday cake.
And
I have one question.
yeah.
Can you deny permits for any type of building legal stop 30 permits?
What was the question?
Oh, yeah.
Can you deny
I don't think
any
so.
building permits until stop 30 is fixed? That could be 5 years.
No, sir, we could not do that.
No.
Yeah, legally, we could not do that.
Yeah, we'd have to hold any development to improve infrastructure as their development would trigger the need for that. But we couldn't do that. But we really appreciate everybody coming. So, just to reiterate what we've already shared is we're here, the staff's hearing you, the consultant's hearing you, the planning commissioners that are here, they've heard what you've said tonight, and all this is going to be taken into account. And then a new version will be created, not two options. There'll be one option to respond to, but we needed two just to get a feel in this early stage of this. But we'll have a final option, and we'll get that out, and it'll be like we did this one. I mean, you'll have plenty of time. It won't be a week or two before the meeting. It'll be similar to what we did here, where you had a whole month or so that had access to everything. So, but we really appreciate your input, and it's very valued, and we're very curious to see, where this goes.
Will we get notification through the mail like we did for this one for the next meeting?
Yes, so for when this goes, not to the planning commission workshop, but when the plan goes to planning commission to be adopted, there will be a public hearing for that meeting.
And when we do have that planning commission workshop, that's before the public hearing that we'll send you notice to, people can attend, but that is for, as Timothy shared earlier, that's for the planning commissioners to really take all the stuff into account, and for us to get to the point where we have that next version of whatever the final draft of the plan is, so that then we can get it out to the public. But that won't be an interactive, informal type of thing like we've got here. It's got to be something where the planning commission can focus, and really they can really get down and narrow this thing down to get it out to the public. Good question.
Excuse me, if I could say something.
Yes, ma'am.
I've lived in Creekwood. I'm in 111 Creekwood.
Can we get you on the microphone?
Oh, okay.
Just for those who are left on YouTube.
Okay. My name is Sally Edwards. I live at 111 Creekwood. I've been there for 47 years. I saw everything come along there, the bypass, Glenbrook, all the developments. And what we don't, and back in, I think you said it was 2009, when they wanted to build on the property there off of Stop 30, we all got together in the neighborhood, said we didn't want it because we didn't want Creekwood to become a thoroughfare. That's what's going to happen. Right now, the kids and even some adults use Creekwood as a speedway. And they just get motorcycles or the little motor things, they just go up and down that street. And you can bet, if you open up that to Stop 30, people are going to come to that light and they're just going to keep going down there. And it's bad enough at 4:30 to about 6:30 to try to get out of there with the lights. It is going to be terrible. And I agree with what everybody said. It's a nice neighborhood. Like I said, I've been there for 47 years, seen a lot of different things happen. But it's a nice neighborhood. It's a quiet neighborhood, except for the speeders up and down the road. And what the gentleman said about the bridge, that bridge would definitely have to be widened, which would probably, they'd say, well, I think we better widen Creekwood a little bit, which wouldn't make me too happy. So I'm just saying, you really need to think this out. And my next question, considering things that have to be done in this town, when is it really realistic that something like this would even start? I mean, it's what the gentleman said, something, how much was it, 3 million? To do this project on Stop 30? Realistically, when would that ever start?
I mean, I don't think anyone can predict that. It's something, it wouldn't happen tomorrow, I can tell you that.
It's probably not going to happen for a long while.
Right, and
It should be.
And
It
those kind of things,
probably-
they do take a long time, and that actually, one of the reasons, in addition to several other things that we talked about tonight, has been one of my interests to get this subject before the public, get it before the planning commission, and get some of these questions answered about the vision of this area. You know, one of those things is to bring to light the condition of Stop 30 and the improvement that needs to be done on New Shackle. So all of this, although it's stirring some things up, you know, that are concerning, and as we're having these discussions, this is also, as we're progressing this plan, it's bringing this to the top of the conversation that we're having here in the community. And it's putting a focus and it's putting a light on Stop 30 and New Shackle as well. And I think to echo what Alderman Roberson was saying earlier. So I think this is the way this kind of starts, but to put a date on it, we just wouldn't know, you know, what that would be. And you could see on a lot of the other large projects that are just now happening, you know, they started at a process years ago. So I wish I could give you that answer, but
Yeah.
I understand the frustration with it.
Because I know of the tunnel to go up to relieve the traffic there at the railroad crossing. How long have you been considering that? And it probably will never get done. It's just so much money, and every year that goes by, it gets more and more and more, to the point where you just can't afford it. And I have a feeling that's the way Stop 30 will be. It's wonderful what you want to do, but I doubt if it'll ever look like what you have the pictures up there. And if it's 30, I don't know who the gentleman is that said how much it was. 3 million now?
That's not the plans that they're looking at, that's just widening the road.
Yeah, just widen the road. So who knows, in a year from now, it could be 5 million.
Yeah, your point's well taken, and that's why we do a land use and transportation plan to set the goals and visions, so to speak, for an area, so that we can get ahead of those problems. Not to say that we can see everything that comes down the pike, but we have to start. We have to make some sort of plan, some sort of goal for that area, so we can try to hit a target. If we have no plan, then we have no hope of doing that. But we certainly heard all of y'all's concerns, especially about Creekwood connection and the problems there, existing Stop 30 traffic. There's been several planning commission members who are still here, have heard your concerns. These will all these topics will be brought up for discussion and will be part of the plan. We appreciate y'all coming out tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again for the next draft.
Thank you.